So a while ago I released this little reharmonization of an Ed Sheeran song.
To carry more than just my secrets, to carry love, to carry children of our own. We are still kids, but we're so.
Now reharmonization has been around for a long time, and it's really common in jazz and jazz fusion. Even if you look at most jazz standards, they're all really just popular songs that were popular in the mid-20th century. A lot of jazz players at the time just took those songs and reharmonized them, or just changed the chords around and just made them their own. So that's exactly what I wanted to do with that video. I wanted to take a popular song and reharmonize it and try to make it sound as outside as possible, but while still sounding like the original tune. So in this video, I just wanted to explain some of the concepts that I was using in that video and where exactly some of those chords were coming from. So first, it would be helpful to know what the chord progression actually is. So this chord progression is just A flat major, F minor, D flat major, and E flat major. And if we analyze that in the key of A flat major, that would just be the first chord, the sixth chord, fourth chord, and the fifth chord.
We fell in love, not knowing what it was. I will not give you up this time.
So the first thing we could do to make this sound more interesting is to add extended chords. So what I mean by that is adding chords with 7ths, 9ths, 11ths, or 13ths, rather than just playing triads.
When we fell in love, not knowing what it was, I will not give you up this time. Darling, just kiss me.
Or you can think of another concept which is called a diatonic substitution. Now what that is when you take a chord, let's just take this A flat major chord. And now how about we substitute that with the minor 7th chord a third above that, so C minor 7. Now the reason we can do that is because the notes of an A flat major 7 chord are just A flat, C, E flat, and G. Whereas a C minor 7th chord has the notes C, E flat, G, and B flat. So really you could just think of this chord as an A flat major chord but without the root. So an easy way to explain that is if you have a major chord, you can go a third higher and play a minor chord, or you can go a third lower and play a minor chord. Because again, the notes of an F minor 7 chord are just F, A flat, C, and E flat. So again, it has that A, C, E flat, so it still sounds like the same chord. And for minor chords, you just go up a minor third and play a major chord. And that gives you a minor 9 sound.
Darling, just kiss me slow. Your heart is all I own, and in your eyes you're holding mine, baby.
Now you may notice that the harmonic rhythm or the speed at which chords change in this song is actually pretty slow. So because of that, we could actually add additional chords in order to fill in those spaces. So one common way in jazz music to do that is to add chords and movements of fourths. So if you study jazz music, you probably know that they use the 2-5-1 progression a lot. And one big reason they use that a lot is because if you start on the 2 chord and then go to the 5 chord, you're going up a fourth. And then you go up another fourth that brings you to the root. Another common progression in jazz is the 3-6-2-5-1. So, which is the same thing. It's all moving in fourths. So an example of that in this video is I start on this chord, and then from there I notice it goes to its relative minor. So I just figured, what if I just play a 2-5-1 in F minor? So that would be G minor 7 flat 5 to a C7. And then to F minor. Now even though a C7 chord isn't diatonic to A flat major, meaning it doesn't exist within the key of A flat major, it still works because it has a tendency to pull the listener towards the next chord, so it kind of emphasizes the movement into the F minor chord. And then what I did with the next chord movement was I played an F7 chord and then an A flat 7 sharp 5 chord. But what I was thinking of when I was making those chords is I wanted to make this chord transition smoothly into this chord. So one thing I thought of was maybe if I play an F7 chord and then move up a minor third, that actually gets me a kind of a half whole diminished kind of sound, because in the half whole diminished scale there's actually consecutive seventh chords in every minor third. So if you play an F7 and just move it up minor thirds, that's a half whole diminished kind of sound. So I played F7 and then moved that up to A flat 7 sharp 5 because I wanted to play a D flat major 9 chord right after. Now another really common jazz concept is the tritone substitution. Now what the tritone substitution is when, let's say you're playing a 2-5-1 and A flat major, the 2 chord is B flat minor 7, the 5 chord is E flat 7, but if we go a tritone away from E flat, so that would be A or B double flat, and just play a dominant 7th chord off of that, that has a tendency to lead to the A flat major chord. So you get this kind of sound. So that's just a neat little trick to use if you want to have like a descending bass line. So all 3 of those techniques applied to this song would sound something like this.
Well, darling, just kiss me slow. Your heart is all I own, and in your eyes you're holding mine, baby.
For the next verse, I wanted to do something a little different. So what I did was I went to the higher register and I started actually messing around with inversions of the same chords. So for example, on this F minor 7 chord, I would just jump around to different inversions of that. So now all of those chords I play are essentially F minor 7, but with the notes in different order. And then another thing I wanted to do was add diminished 7th chords that would resolve up to those chords. So like in this case, E7 or E diminished 7th resolves up to F minor 7. So what I did is I would basically add a diminished chord in between each inversion, so it would sound something like this. Now those 2 chords, the minor 7th chord and the diminished 7th chord being played like that, actually form its own scale called the diminished 6th scale. So if you really want to get into this concept, then definitely look up the diminished 6th scale. It's actually really interesting. Now one of the last little decisions I'd like to point out that I made in that video was I played this sequence of chords. Now that's kind of interesting because what I did was I played A flat major 7, and then immediately after played A flat minor 7 flat 5. Which might be kind of a weird decision to make because A flat minor 7 flat 5 doesn't exist in the key of A flat major 7s. So right away you might think of this as a wrong chord. But actually, the reason I made that decision was because I noticed that in between these chords, on these 3 top strings actually go down a whole step. So in order to make it sound more interesting, what I did was I wanted to add a chord that made these all go down a half step. So that's all I did. I just took this chord, moved them all down a half step, and then that leads nicely into the G minor 7 flat 5. So this could be an example of non-functional harmony, as in harmony that doesn't function the way that functional harmony does. In this scenario, really the only thing that makes this chord work is the fact that it voice leads so well into the next chord. And then it kind of creates some extra tension that goes smoothly into the F minor chord. So at the time I thought that was really interesting because it really showed me that even if there's a chord that doesn't exist within the scale, you can actually try it and it'll actually sound pretty interesting against the rest of the song.
Well, I found a woman stronger than anyone I know. She shares my dreams. I hope that someday I'll share her home.
So I found that really interesting, and it kind of opened up a whole new world for me in terms of what I can do with these chord progressions, even if they don't function the way I'm used to. So if you're interested in going even further with this concept of reharmonization and non-functional chord progressions, definitely check out the video. I think it's called Extreme Jazz Reharmonization by YouTuber Adam Neely. In that video, he kind of does the same thing that I do, where he starts simple and then he builds up to non-functional harmony, and then he proceeds to just start going crazy with it and doing a whole bunch of other weird chord progressions that you may not think of. So if you're interested in that, definitely check that out. But anyway, that's all I have time for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely work on this, because for me, this concept of reharmonization really opened my mind up to like what's possible in terms of what kind of chord progressions you can make and what kind of harmony you can make. But otherwise, yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you all in the next video.